What about the experience do you think maybe a lot of people have wrong or don't understand about what was going on, either the goals of it, what people were saying, the amount of violence? Like there's been attempts in hindsight to now say, well, it was actually only a small percentage who were violent or they were let in, so it's totally acceptable. Like I think there's been a lot of myth making around it. So what are some things that you'd like to maybe correct the record on?
Yeah. Well, for one thing, many things can be true at the same time, right? So I think that the crowd there, I believe, was very diverse as well, right? It was not just all people wanting to be violent or all people wanting to be peaceful. There was all kinds of people, a very diverse crowd. I think the one thing that they all did have in common is they believed that the election was stolen, and they were there because the election was stolen. And they were also there to try to let the people inside the buildings know that they did not agree with the outcome of the election. So they were following that. In terms of I think what people should understand is, there was some obviously disgusting violence that you see happening. But there's probably 100,000 people there. So a lot of people were being incredibly violent. Others were standing on the outskirts. A lot of things were happening at the same time. So what this film does is it just puts you in the moment, and you can actually observe in a contextual way. You see these scenes unfold. For example, like the first breach of the Capitol outside the West entrance was actually happening while Trump was still speaking at the Ellipse. So this is all built in, and it wasn't. You can see it's not a spontaneous thing because it had been building for months. Even the night before, on January 5th, there was a ridiculous amount of violence, and people were like, "You can't stop what's coming tomorrow." So the next day, when you see this breach happening, our cameras were right there, embedded with the people on the front lines as they breached. So there's 3 fences leading up to the Capitol, the perimeter fence at the sidewalk. And then about 50 yards up, there's some bike racks with about 5 cops. And then all the way up the rest of the sidewalk to the foot of the Capitol, where there's a lot more cops. But we're talking literally only a handful of cops. Mm-hmm. And when the Trump supporters started moving towards, you see in the pictures, it's a sea of people. It's literally tens of thousands of people and just a few cops, and our cameras kind of captured the intimate moments as they reached each one of these breach lines, and you see the encounters. And so you're in some place, you might find a cop somewhere in the day waving someone in, but a lot of these scenes, the cops were, from what you see, not from what we tell you, are terrified, and they don't know what to do because they're literally overwhelmed in most cases. Yeah.
We're gonna play a little bit more from the film, and then I have a question. You brought up a point earlier that I want to get back to, so let's roll a little bit more.
Yeah.
What is happening right now is a spiritual war for the soul of this country. It is a spiritual war between Satan and evil, and between us, the children of Jesus Christ. This is a Christian nation, and the Christians in this country demand that we have Christian leaders governing this country.
Yeah! So I don't know who's going to the White House in 38 days, but I sure know this. Joe Biden is a globalist, and Joe Biden will be removed one way or another.
We will shut this country down. We believe in some good trouble, right? Yeah! Maybe some Make America Great Again trouble, right?
So what I find fascinating about that, you talked about the through line of the people in the crowd is, whether they're peaceful or not, whatever, they all believe the election has been stolen. But there's this carnival atmosphere where all of these people, many of whom their career is whipping people into a frenzy, getting them to subscribe, getting them to buy merchandise and everything, they all descend too. And like Alex Jones has his globalist conspiracy side, Nick Fuentes has his everyone should be a Christian fascist side. So I find that to be fascinating, the sort of feeding frenzy where like the product is the people who showed up for the rallies. And so I'm curious if there were any others that you filmed that you didn't see. But I'd also like to know, you mentioned you interviewed people after the violence. And I'm really curious. We know now what a lot of MAGA people think about January 6th and what they think about what people think about January 6th. But how were they responding in the moment? Did they think that a line had been crossed, or maybe some of the violence shouldn't have happened? Was there any regret or contrition or anything like that?
Well, two questions there. First of all, the organizers you mentioned, like Alex Jones and Nick Fuentes, Ali Alexander. So one thing that this film does that I believe, I have not seen in any other film or coverage is show the interconnections between a lot of the main characters who are creating the momentum for these rallies and to get people to January 6th. So you had Ali Alexander, who was the founder of the Stop the Steal movement in 2020. Roger Stone, who originally came up with the word Stop the Steal, had sort of passed the torch to Ali, and they collaborated, along the way. Rudy Giuliani, who was Trump's, main, head of his legal team. Alex Jones, who has obviously a huge platform, was getting a lot of people mobilized to come to these events. Nick Fuentes, Michael Flynn, and they all work in concert, and there are connections with White House or their personal connections, and they all work together as a collaborators to make this all happen. So a lot of people got there on January 6th, and the main thing, I think, at the end of the day on January 6th, there was a transformation and people did come together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it might be scary when some of them come together, but there was that. One more question. Will you be in the Capitol for this coming January 6th? Are you planning to do any film? We don't know how the election is going to go, but either way, is there any plan for follow-ups if you have reason to believe that there could be protests or organization?
Well, I mean, the first time around, it was a surprise that happened. This time around, I would be infinitely more surprised if it happened, because there's no way there's going to be just a few cops there. It'll be more like the inauguration 2 weeks later, where the National Guard. So that will never happen, in my opinion. I don't think that will happen again. However, it will the Stop the Steal 2.0 movement, as you know, is well underway, much more organized, and so it's going to manifest itself in a different way. So already they're contesting what could happen in battleground states, in election offices all around the country. So that's a huge part of the effort, but it's probably going to be a much more multi-pronged effort, but I don't see it being anything that looks like an attack on a Capitol. I think that's like hopefully that's a once in a lifetime thing. And hopefully people come together the way they did on the night of January 6th from all sides and said, this is not acceptable. We are better than this. We can agree to disagree, and we do not need political violence.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been best if it never happened. The next best thing would be for it to never happen again. And hopefully you're right. Although I do worry about the new formulation of that movement. Where can people see the film?
So it's available for free on YouTube. You can go to our website, fightlikehellmovie.com. And it's been distributed by Journeyman Pictures. So that's another way to find it, but it's on YouTube, so you can find it. Probably the easiest way to get the link is fightlikehellmovie.com.
Awesome. Jon Long, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.